We love death more than you love life. That's one of the favorite taglines of the more consistent among Muslims and their preachers when they talk to Westerners and explain why ultimately they will win their war for a global jihad, a global caliphate. Uh, the president of Iran and the foreign minister of Iran have fulfilled their love last night, and so this is going to be a romantic kind of episode. Their helicopter mysteriously crashed. We don't know who or how it happened. Allah is on their side, so he must have been busy doing something else. I don't know what he was where he was. But yeah, they're dead. Of course, the president of Iran is, the supreme leader is the one who really runs the country, but the president is not like it's not an insignificant role. Let's just say his death is not a bad thing. This guy has a history, by the way. He's a particularly nasty piece of shit, and is now no longer with us. How will we cope? Welcome to the Daily Objective, James. How are you doing? How did you
Uh,
think the news?
well, I'm doing much better since I heard the news that this monster died and got the death that they love. We're not giving them what they want. We're not giving them enough of what they want. I think we really should give them generous helpings of the death that they so eagerly say they desire. It is a giant death cult. This guy, Ebrahim Raisi, is one of the most evil, I can say gladly, happily, was one of the most evil human beings on the planet. In After the Islamic Revolution in 1979, he was still a young, ambitious prosecutor for the theocratic totalitarian state. And he was helping them execute political prisoners throughout the 80s. He was one of the key prosecutors for a giant massacre that occurred in 1988. He was one of the people there was no due process. The numbers were hidden. Iran says, oh, well, only about 2,500 people were killed. The reality is more like 30,000. The better estimates are more like 30,000 or 30,000 plus people, perhaps 35,000 people or more were slaughtered for perfectly political reasons. Dissidents, people who had different religious views, different political views, a whole range of not people who committed no crime except oppose the evil regime in Tehran. Thousands, tens of thousands were likely killed by this monster. Now, what did that do? That, of course, moved him up the food chain in the Iranian government, and he swiftly moved up. We know that there were uprisings. We've said many times on this channel that the Iranian people, unlike the Arab populations in the area, which seem to support their theocratic governments, at least there's a sizable resistance within Iran. And they have repeatedly tried to overthrow this evil regime in Tehran in 2009, 2017, 2019. There were uprisings. Unfortunately, Presidents Obama and Biden did nothing, did not lift a finger to help these people trying to overthrow their government, their totalitarian, theocratic government, which masses of Iranians oppose. And has the West done anything to help these people every time they attempt to revolt? No. So this guy has been a key player in terms of putting down these revolts time and time again. That's how he got elected, and I put that in scare quotes, in 2021, where international observers said it was a rigged thing. The Ayatollah wanted him in. And so in a rigged election, this Ebrahim Raisi guy gets elected president. Now, the Ayatollah is the supreme leader, but the day-to-day management of the government is up to the president. This guy has been making the calls. I just want to emphasize this, making the political calls and the military calls since 2021. That means that in 2022, he was the guy responsible when this poor girl was accused of wearing the hijab improperly, just for wearing the hijab improperly. She disappears in an Iranian prison, tortured and killed, almost certainly. There is a revolt in 2022. and women and girls, hundreds of them, are publicly hanged. And you know how Iran hangs their homosexuals, their political dissidents, women who don't want to wear the hijab. They don't do it by the breakneck, quick die quick fashion. They'll hang you so that you slowly strangle, a slow asphyxiation. They love the old-fashioned torture killing kind of ways, and that's what this guy was all about. Now that was 2022. He is, of course, been the guy who's been for the last several years helping to feed Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, being aggressive about American bases in Iran and Syria, and of course, helping to coordinate. He denounced the Abraham Accords. He's called Jews in many contexts animals. He says legalized homosexuality is savagery, not his government being savage. The man was a monster, truly evil. He has truly the direct responsibility for thousands of tortures, for tens of thousands of deaths. And I am not exaggerating. If he had a bigger population, this guy would be, bucking for Adolf Hitler. I do not like Adolf Hitler comparisons, generally speaking. In this case, we're talking about a totalitarian, theocratic, anti-Semitic monster who did, in fact, torture and kill as many as he could get his hands on, who opposed the Iranian regime. He initiated what can only be described as an all-out war against Israel and America, which Israel and America is not properly responding to. Now, as for the death itself, it was a 40-year-old, get this, 40-year-old helicopter of American design. Because of the status of Iran for the last 40 years, they've been unable to get spare parts for this helicopter. Was the weather bad? Were they up in a mountainous region in northwestern Iran? Yes. I think it could be just a sheer incompetent accident that killed these people. I, however, would be delighted to learn that it was the Israeli government or the American government that properly executed this monster for the thousands and thousands of horrific crimes he committed. But I'm certain that Biden doesn't have the huevos to do it.
Yeah.
He's too busy kissing up to Iran. He would never dream of doing such a thing. So alas, I don't think America did it. And I even doubt if Israel did it. This is probably just an accident that comes about when, it's like in Atlas Shrugged, these irrational savages trying to control technology that's sort of beyond their capacity, which shows just how weak and backward they are, and how if America ever did get a backbone to deal with them, how easy they would be to take out.
Yeah,
But in any
it
case,
is an
I'm
accident.
celebrating today.
It is an accident, just like out of Atlas Shrugged. The only difference is it's a helicopter, not a train. But yeah, it's a backward dictatorship that thinks they can decree things into existence, and then finds out in the clearest of ways that that is not how things happen. Thank you, Wes, for the super chat. Thank you, Equal to Reality, for the super chat. Equal to Reality says, my condolences to the helicopter. There's this Israeli sense of humor that I've been told when it comes to me is sometimes a bit dark, but it definitely showed up yesterday. And one of the things that somebody said somewhere online is that the pilot was actually Israeli. His name was Eli. Eli is an Israeli name. Eli Copter. And this was actually picked up by some Hamas people who said this, here's proof. The Jews are talking about it and they're admitting it. So that was a hilarious, I think, hilarious moment last night.
If Israel did do it, they should be awful proud of doing it. It's one of the great moral accomplishments of recent weeks. One of the few times I can really be happy and celebratory is this. This is good news. It is good news when a killer dies. It is good news when the leader of perhaps one of the most evil regimes to ever exist dies. This whole idea that somehow it would be wrong, and that's the way media, even in my country, covers it a little bit, is somehow it would be wrong if Israel or America took out this monster. It would be a great moral accomplishment for anyone to take out these monsters. They deserved death, at least. And so give them the death that they want. that they ask for repeatedly. And I think we should be doling out more death to monsters of this kind.
Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, Frank, for the super chat. Frank says weather plus helicopter happened with Kobe Bryant too. Yeah, it can happen, with better equipment as well. But here, is one of those cases where you wonder if maybe this accident wouldn't have happened, if they were if they had better equipment, if they weren't a dictatorship that the reasonable around the world wouldn't deal with.
This was a more than 40-year-old helicopter,
Yeah.
and they don't have the best spare parts and engineers there. Let me just suggest.
And their engineers are busy with other stuff anyway, so they're
Right.
busy with killing machines, less with transportation for the living. Not everybody is as happy as we are. The European Union sent its condolences after first offering or not actually helping them. Ironically, because what I saw as soon as the news, there were hours from when the news came that the helicopter went down until they confirmed his death. It was quite a few hours. But already once they knew the helicopter was down, there were fireworks, there's videos from all over Iran, and again, remember, this is not your run-of-the-mill like celebration like we're used to in the West. You can get killed for just those fireworks, but that is how happy Iranians actually are. Again, as you said, the only country in the Middle East where there is real opposition, the only dictatorship in the Middle East where there is real opposition and real potential friends of the West if we only, accepted their friendship rather than begged their oppressors for their friendship.
Well, exactly right. Exactly right. I mean, I don't even understand the condolences. I don't even understand the sadness. This is a happy day. This is a glorious day when the president of this evil regime goes down. As I say, just for, in 2022, it was brutal. The slaughter of those girls and women who were protesting, brutal. But consider, let's go back, as I say, to older time. This guy was the guy, one of the chief architects of slaughtering tens of thousands of dissidents in the 1980s. And since then, he's been a key part of what they do to dissidents. That's how he became president. He's the guy that is in charge of arresting, torturing, and murdering innocent people simply because they oppose this evil regime. We should be celebrating. We should be, everyone, the EU. I question. I mean, it's like sending out, condolences to Charles Manson's death. What? The guy's a serial killer, and
Yeah.
so condolences? No,
Yeah,
celebration. Let's
it's
pop the Veuve Clicquot. Let's have a party.
It's
The,
not surprising, but it's disgusting to see every single time. You mentioned that he's elected. There are elections for the presidency in Iran that are once the candidates are chosen are pretty probably the fairest that you have in the Middle East. But the candidates are chosen by the Ayatollahs. So it's not like
right.
if somebody says, you know what, our policy should be, we should recognize the state of Israel. They
Well,
get
that's it.
executed for that.
The Ayatollah selects who can even be on the ballot.
Yeah,
And so then, of course, if what they call a more moderate person gets elected, it's a more moderate killer. It's someone who wants murder on a slightly less scale, a slightly smaller scale. That's it. But guess what? It was even a rigged election. Even observers in 2021 at the time said not only has the Ayatollah selected, but they've actually engaged in election fraud to get this guy in, this Mr. Raisi guy in, so that they could, and now consider what had happened since 2021, since he got in. This brutal suppression of women trying to revolt against the Iranian regime, the war, this as I say, Hamas's attack, Hezbollah's attacks, the coordinated attacks from the Houthis, the attacks on American bases, and this is all obviously a coordinated attack. We know it's funded from Tehran. We know that they're the ones who financially underwrote all of that attack, including October 7th. Mr. Raisi denounced the Abraham Accords. Now, that may be the one time where I may have a slight agreement with Mr. Raisi. I was no big fan of the Abraham Accords. On the other hand, he denounced them, and he denounced them in such strident way that it's clear to me that Iran was behind October 7th. They knew about it. It was a totally coordinated set of attacks from all of the Iranian proxies about at the same time. And even if they didn't know the exact timing of when October 7th would happen, they jumped on it, took advantage of it, and remember that attack. A huge number of rockets and missiles were fired at Israel just days ago. Just days ago. Of course, the defensive missile system of Israel largely kept that out with some help from some others. But this is the guy who has been on the warpath against Western civilization since he became president. Consider just what's been happening in the Middle East in the last 3 years. Raisi was one of the main architects.
Yeah, I want to just issue a clarification for the thumbnail for today's episode. This is not a journalistic thumbnail. We don't actually know for a fact that the 72 virgins are men, but we don't know otherwise either. And I don't think that's been made clear. And so it could be that is his preference or just a surprise.
You know something, I know that there's no afterlife. I reject the supernatural. I reject religion. But if I ever had a hope that there might be an afterlife, this guy so richly deserved. The guy who says legalized homosexuality is what is savagery, not his brutal execution of innocent people being the savagery. This guy would deserve some kind of long extended torture in the afterlife should one exist. And I almost am sorry that there isn't some kind of justice for this kind of guy, because guess what? The justice that happens because people make it happen. And the injustice that happens that keeps this evil regime in power is our fault, is the fault of America. Our turning our back on the Iranian people who want a new and better government, are ignoring all those acts of war against America and Israel that Iran is engaged in since this evil regime took power in 1979. Israel and America have ignored evil, have allowed things like October 7th to happen because they have appeased it, and appeased it. They've negotiated with it. They've every chance they get. And so thank goodness if it was an accident. I mean, thank goodness they get that sort of a justice from their own savage, barbaric incompetence. But on the other hand, what should have happened was an Israeli or American bullet taking out this monster.
Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says he was evil, so it's good he's gone. Absolutely. Thank you, Akira, for the super chat. Akira says Mossad should say it was them. Thoughts? Well, if you're referring to the parody X account that pretends to be Mossad but makes it clear that they're not, then yes. If this was actually Israel, no, this is not how you do it. I mean, if you're actually going to go to war, declare it. If they just do this, and then what's gonna happen next? We wait to the next Iranian retaliation. If you go all out war, do it, which I think Israel should do. Just
all out, flatten Tehran, attack every military base in the country, destroy every leader in that country, every political figure in that country, every military leader in that country. Give the Iranian people a chance for something better. And they, apparently a significant number of them, do want something better. If the Mossad did this, they should be proud of it and taking credit for it, unless it would compromise. See, we would have to know the intelligence, and we wouldn't want to compromise any intelligence they had in their ability to get the information of where he'd be and how to do this and pulling it off. But that with that proviso, if Israel was responsible, they should be proud. I just am not sure that it wasn't just a question of, a 50-year-old helicopter they don't have the spare parts for going down in bad weather in the mountains of northern Iran. That's all.
Yeah. Thank you, Robin. Robin has been a YouTube member for 23 months, I believe, a member through the website even longer. Robin says, will this make a big difference? There's plenty of evil people there in power. Yeah, in a sense, actually, I might contradict my previous statement, but it might make more of a difference if, to the extent that they believe that this wasn't an accident, because people in all sorts of positions in Iran, from time to time, accidents happen to them, and they're not always accidents. And the more they think they are at risk of such things, it might have some impact. Will it have the kind of impact we want? I don't know, but I also don't know because Iran is so closed and we don't really get enough information about we can't really know how far away, let's say, the opposition is from actually doing something. Um, there's hope. I wouldn't say there's a lot of hope. I wouldn't say this is the moment that something big is changing. I'd be very surprised if that happens, but it is a positive. Let's put it this way. It's a thing to celebrate today. It's not
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's all it really is for me. This doesn't really change the situation. And that that was going to be one of my last comments here. I don't think. I mean, and you know why? It's us. It's America. It's Israel. We look at how Joe Biden is telling Israel not to go into Rafah. I mean, that's disgusting. And that is what gives hope to the bad guys. The bad guys keep getting lifelines thrown to them. Oh, we're going to get humanitarian aid there. We're going to stop Israel from doing. Look, every time Joe Biden does that, every time Joe Biden or Blinken says something monstrous about Israel, of course, that gives hope and life to all the forces of evil in the Middle East, especially those in Tehran. They couldn't have been more delighted, I'm sure, at the protests that are going on in Western universities, for example. No, the regime, the Ayatollah, and his surviving buddies are smiling, and they can easily replace him, and this won't affect much in the long run. No, and that's our fault, ladies and gentlemen. Our fault. We should have killed him. Yes, we should kill the Ayatollah. We should kill that entire government. Every member of that evil regime richly deserves death, especially after October 7th. But as I say, after they immediately took power in the 1980s, throughout the early 1980s, and they were killing political dissidents within their country. It was in 88, it had just reached a climax, a crescendo, where some 30 plus thousand people who were just trying to politically demonstrate were slaughtered. And this Raisi guy was key to that slaughter. This is a truly evil regime. And the West has appeased it and allowed it to continue. And from what I can tell, listen to the EU sending their condolences. Listen to the EU sending their condolences. No,
Yeah.
the West is weak on this, and that's why there's no real long-term difference this will make.
Thank you, Gail, for the super chat. So in those hours where they were searching for the helicopter, among the countries that offered help and may have provided it was Russia, Turkey, Qatar, all these countries that we seem to not want to believe when they tell us how they are our enemies. And by us, I mean us in the West. Israel is kind of an easy target now for whatever reason, or for the reason that the West is eager to appease its enemies. But yeah, this is relevant to all of us. Those of us in the UK, those of you in the US. We should again listen to them. Listen to them when something like this happens in Iran. Listen to them when things happen elsewhere. These are our enemies, and we should accept, just like we should accept the friendship request, if you will, of the Iranian dissidents, the Iranian opposition, the people risking their lives to make Iran a place that the West could actually look at as an ally. We should also listen to our enemies when they say that they are what they are.
Absolutely. The continued presence of Turkey in NATO is just appalling, offensive, and perverse. It is against the security interests of the West to include the Istanbul regime, the Ankara regime in NATO at all. What the hell is Turkey doing in NATO at all? And listen to how we negotiate in Qatar. First of all, we recognize another religious monarchy that has no legitimacy, Qatar, as our middleman to negotiate. with these monsters in Tehran. No, so long as they can see that we're doing that, we're appeasing places like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, and without any kind of real objection when they do something monstrously evil. Uh, uh, Something like Iran, the monsters in Iran know they're secure. They can sleep well at night knowing that America's not going to do shit to hurt them, so long as we act in this disgustingly appeasing way.
Thank you, Judah Lion Club, for the super chat. Judah Lion Club says, "Do not mess with God of Israel." I mean, we appreciate the super chat. I can't agree with the content of that super chat because I think the problem might be that Israel is relying on some being that there is no reason to believe exists, while they know that they exist and that they have the abilities to fight against its enemies. This imaginary God wasn't there for the people on October 7th, wasn't there for the soldiers who were killed every day or nearly every day in battle. So yeah,
Yeah,
Israel should rely
just as
on
we
its strength.
say, where was Allah when Raisi's helicopter went down? People have also asked, where was Hashem for the Holocaust? I prefer, if I'm going to invent a fantasy being, someone like Superman with a Star of David instead of the S, coming down and wiping out every single member of Hamas or something, or the entire government of Iran and the entire Hezbollah operation in Lebanon. So if I'm going to invent a fantasy, I'll invent some superhero, maybe like Iron Man or Superman or Spider-Man or something, who
Or
can,
Arya Stark.
yeah, exactly, with a Star of David and destroy Israel's enemies in one fell swoop. That would be
Uh,
delightful.
Thank you, Frank, for the super chat. Frank says, "Can Bibi really be arrested in any country?" Um, Maybe. I don't know. This will be an interesting thing to see if it happens. I guess he would not travel to countries where he thinks they would arrest him. But yeah, I mean everything that's going on. One of the things they said in this arrest warrant was that Israel is intentionally starving the Palestinians, where unfortunately it should be intentionally starving the Palestinians because they are the enemy who declared war and continue to fight that war, but Israel is intentionally feeding its enemy. And that is
Yeah.
what is unprecedented about this war. And of course, James, I know you want to comment on that. We are almost out of time, and we will be talking in the reality show we will be debunking the Palestinian suffering lie, and we can talk about that a bit more.
Yes.
But
Yeah, well, all I'll say is there should be more suffering inflicted on the Palestinian people who overwhelmingly support these monsters. And besides, they're part of the material support of these monsters. In any war, the supporting population are fair targets. Civilians are perfectly fair targets if they in any way materially support or even ideologically support the enemy during a time of war. And that'll be my only comment on that. But there should be more suffering in Gaza, not less.
absolutely. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says God was created by the men who wrote the story. I agree. Generally, I think, debating the existence of God is kind of futile. I don't see the point because there is no evidence and there's no reason to believe that there is a God. But I would say, if there is any place where you should debate it, it is in our super chat because then you help us promote objectivism and help us fight the war against the bad guys on the intellectual battlefield. Thank you, Judah Lion Club, who's been a member for 1 month, says, "Razi, how do you know what I mean by God?" Well, I assume you mean what people usually assume, which is a being that is supernatural, and that is what I was replying to. If it's something else, you can let us know in the chat on the reality show because this show is out of time. But the reality show will start in a couple of minutes. Thank you, James. Thank you to whatever powers made that helicopter come down. And thank you, everybody, for watching. The reality show starts in a couple of minutes. See you there.